So today's theme is hip check with a twist. So I want to just say right from the beginning that what inspired me was this little bouquet of flowers that I gathered the other day. I went to the garden and I went with the scissors and a plastic bag, and I intended to make a bouquet. And the flowers were blooming as they will at their own heights wherever they are. There were some stages that were 8 feet tall and 8 feet wide, and there were some blanket flowers that were low. And I just found myself doing a lot of this and this kind of thing to get where I wanted to go, squatting, reaching. And I thought, wow, that's, you know, the connection with strength in the legs and hips to that twisting motion that you make without thinking about it. I want this thing, and you go that way. So we're going to look at some of the alignment that will help support moves like that, especially if you're out picking flowers or working in your garden or things like that.
That's Carol Warner, the gardener.
Yeah. So let's start with a move that I haven't taught in here, but you'll probably recognize. MoveNet calls it side bent sit. And so folks that are getting down to the floor are going to get down into this shape. Folks that are getting into a chair, just do the same thing. Keep that one foot on the ground and bring that other leg up here. So you can kind of have an approximation of that whether you're sitting wherever you're sitting. So we get a little bit of hip opening here. And what we're going to do is from that side bent sit position, we're just going to feel whether our hips are able to get down to the ground evenly. And that can be a real big challenge for so many of us. One of the things you can look at in terms of allowing this hip, let's call it the back hip, this front hip with the knee pointing out this way. The back hip is, instead of having your foot in a 90-degree position, you could tuck your toe under, and that might get you a little bit more even sitting. For some people, this is a really hard move to make. Other people grew up sitting in that W sit where they can do both legs like that. So make yourself as comfortable as possible, and if it's not so comfortable or you feel like this hip is really hovering in the air, bolster it. So you can get a blanket back here and just find exactly the right height of a blanket that allows you to rest more evenly, right? So just take a minute and find yourself in the most comfortable position that you can find, whether it's on the chair or on the floor. And what we're going to do is add a twist to that if that feels good to you. So we're going to do the side bent sit reaching. And I'd like to add Tai Chi breathing to it. So when you're facing the front like this, breathe in. And as you turn and reach, and I'll say reach low, exhale, right? So you can support yourself with your hand if you want. If you want a little bit more twisting work through the center, you can reach. And if you don't want to do the twisting work, just reach out in front of you and stay. So exhale, and then inhale as you come here, and then go the other way, and just notice. Just nice and easy does it for everybody to start with. We're just going to repeat maybe 4 or 5 times. So breathing in through the center, breathing out as you reach low, and then breathe in. So this doesn't have to be 100% effort. Let this be just kind of a light introduction to like a little bit of twisting and a little bit of stability through the hips. So you could even feel what it's like to reach this arm back behind you and support, lean back, and then reach, versus like do one of those on each side, lean back and reach low, versus staying all the way upright in the most neutral pelvis that you can manage, and then reach to the shoulder height.
Where's the breathing?
Inhale when you face the screen or when you're facing forward, and exhale as you reach. And in Tai Chi, we breathe in and out through the nose. That activates parasympathetic nervous system. You can choose to do that, or if you're already working pretty hard, go ahead and just breathe. Make sure you're not holding your breath here. And the next time you come back, reach as high as you can. And this, again, can just be nice and gentle. It can be supported and leaning. So lots of ways to make this accessible to you. Just a little bit of twisting. Reach up. Inhale, exhale. And then we're going to reverse the sitting pattern. So take your time, reverse any way you want, support your hip any way that you need to. And you might find that it's quite different from side to side, especially we've been talking before class. A bunch of us are working on hip differences, whether it's hiking hip or forward hip. So for me on this side, just so much easier. And if I tuck my toe under, I can pretty much land right there. Now, another place that you could support is right underneath this knee. Let's say your knee goes up for whatever reason. Make sure that you're supported here. So you can start in a position that is the most supported. And even this right here is working on all those angles. Can you come into the most neutral pelvis you can find, a nice upright spine? And then we're gonna go ahead and reach. So we're gonna reach low as we exhale. Inhale through the center and then reach low. So feeling free to support yourself as needed with bolsters or hand. When I say bolsters, I mean anything that you tuck underneath you to bring the environment up to where you are today. And the good thing about that bolstering, don't be afraid to bolster, because it's not that you're saying, I can't do it, so I'm going to use a bolster. You're saying, here's where the extent of my boundaries are today. I'm going to use a bolster to support that so that I can relax into the farthest edges of those boundaries and feel supported. So that's all we're talking about when we're using a bolster. It doesn't mean that you'll always use it. It might mean that just today you're going to do that because something. Reach at shoulder height. Inhale. Exhale. And now we'll do 3 that are reaching up all the way. And just notice how your hips are responding. Come on, everybody, to standing, and we're going to go through a little set of some of the classic exercises here that are going to help to activate other muscles around your hip to help the hip rotators take a little bit of time off. So we're going to start with a pelvic list, which is moving into stance here. Your toes are pointing as much forward as possible. If that already makes your hips bark, then just come into as forward as possible. Feet and ankles right underneath your hips so that there's a nice straight line from your hips through your knee and down to your ankle. So we're going to start there. And the idea here is to press down into the right side and lift the pelvis. So if the pelvis is coming this way, we're going to lift to the side and just pick up that foot so that it could swing through. So the idea is to be standing on one leg the way we do in walking with a little bit of a tip or a list. And the action is in the standing glutes and lateral hips. So this leg does not need to abduct. The floating leg just floats. There's nothing happening. And another way you can kind of see this, switch to the other side, is that the sides of your waist stay equal length. So as you press down into the left hip, the right hip comes up, but we're gonna also keep moving up through the torso. We're not gonna crunch down onto that to give us the illusion of this hip coming up. We're also not gonna tuck it that way and flex it. So we're just gonna let both legs be long, vertical, knees not bent. So the other trick to this, go back to your first leg. Oops, let me go this way. Is that you want to make sure that your hips aren't riding out in front of your heels. Get your hips back over your heels, then press down this way. The other side lifts and comes off. So you want to do that without a lot of rib thrusting. You want to do that without a lot of pelvis thrusting. That can get you can do things like that, but here we want to stay in alignment so that we're actually doing the work in the butt and in the lateral hip. And we're just going to come on to about 30 seconds. So any of these moves, if you're going to take them home with you and keep practicing them, work your way up to about a minute a piece. And here I just want to show you about 30 seconds. So come to the second round, second leg. Watch out for this kind of tipping. So I'm crunching down on this side to balance out my ability. This doesn't have to be a balance exercise. So if this turns out to be like a big wobbly thing for you, just grab a wall or a chair, just lightly grab so that you have that support and you can really do the work in the hip. Because sometimes we're tightening up everything so much, the quads should be loose here. So if you feel like your quads are helping hold you up, you aren't far enough back, you're still working with the quads too much, you gotta come way, way back. Let your quads off the hook, your kneecaps will go down.